That means what the rules that you know about constructors, properties, methods, and accessors in JavaScript class, same here also, no change. Uh, Only one point is uh, actually here we have, suppose I will show you accessors. Generally, I told you that accessors have authorized access. One small example I will show you here. For example, I am defining let some username. So username is a string type and we will get it from a prompt. So prompt and we define here enter username and we have password also string type and we defined prompt, so enter password. So that is username and password. And another is product name, so product name, so that's also a string and prompt enter product name. These are the some dynamic inputs we are expecting. I created a class, so some demo class, and in this class we are configuring a property, so product name property, so which is a string type. I give an underscore product name. Underscore represents that, so it's need to be implemented. So that is the tradition of using underscore as a prefix while naming for in general development process. So it needs further implementation. Actually, into this property of this class, that means suppose this is a product class. So the product class have a property called product name. Anyone can access that and set a name into it. So if I mark as read only, then it is read only every time. But we need to define in such a way that for one situation, it should be read only, and another situation, it should allow read write, both operations. In that case, so we need to define more control over this particular property. Then we use accessors. We have a get accessor. Get accessor is used to read and return the value. I will give the name as product name, that is the accessor. What this product name accessor have to do is it should return this dot underscore product name. That means it must return the product name, whatever the product name is there. This is an accessor for this particular property. So this accessor is used for reading the value from the property. And I will create another set accessor product name. This is to set value into it. So it is expecting so a new name, and this new name is a string type. New name is a string type, and here I don't want everyone to set name. This set name must be only for the people who pass the authentication. In that case, we can simply configure a condition like this. If username is matching with some John underscore NIT, something like this, and password is matching with some John 123. If username and password are matching, so then you can use any condition. If it is matching, then so this dot underscore product name, into that we have to apply the new name. set the new name. That means it allows to set the name only for this user. Otherwise, else it should display some message. So the message saying document dot write. So saying that, so you are not authorized to set product name. This message we have to display. You are not authorized to set product name. That message we are defining product name. So this is the accessor how you configure. That means this is general JavaScript. In your JavaScript also you have same technique. So you have properties, you have accessors similarly. So I will try to set that name and access the name and define that, whatever the name entered. So here we are creating an object for product class. For product class, we are creating an object. And for this object, set the name. That means obj, if obj dot obj dot product name, that means if product name is defined, then print that product name. Whatever the product name is there, print that product name. If it is defined, this indicates that it is defined. Uh, what is this question? Get method doesn't have parameter. How to use this keyword? Who is this person? Tirmal Reddy. Of course, you might haven't learned any JavaScript. Class members in a JavaScript are accessed by using this keyword. You know it, at least, right? Right. Fine. Okay. Now another person, Java primitive data type LET. First check your question, what you are trying to ask. Right. Fine. So this is defined, then document dot write. So the product name, so whatever the name is defined, we can access that obj dot product name. This will access the product name and define it. If product name is defined, it will alternate message to display, right? So that is the basic. Okay. Now here I want, because here I am using a lot of DOM manipulations. If you are using DOM manipulations, you can't test in console. You have to test in HTML only. First, we will compile this. So I will transcompile this file. So tsc index.ts. So it will generate into JavaScript and I will link that. And see the error here. It is not error. It is saying that these accessors that you are using are new concepts of JavaScript from ES5 onwards, ECMA script 5 onwards, and make sure that if you are using ECMA script 5 onwards only, these are available. We know that. That's not the point, because these are new options. And let's go to index page now. In index.html, we need to link that index.js. Okay. Now let's run this and see. So when I run this, so it is going to display enter username. So John underscore NIT. Enter password. Suppose I entered like John123 password. Okay. Next, I have defined okay. That means the username and password are correct. Product name enter. The product name I entered as some Samsung TV. If my authentication is successful, this new product name have to set into that and it should use. Now we need to technically define this here to access this and use it. That means we need to access that and display. If it is product name is defined, then it will get that and display. And we need to print on a new screen. So because you are defining in HTML, so we have to access and use it. That means obj.product name need to be printed. So generally, how this product name is printed. General in our example, what we are doing in index.js, you see the code is generated. It is creating all the code required for it, all the code that is required for it. And if username and password are matching, then it is going to set this name, that new name, into the product name. And after that, so it is referring that. And if product name is defined, so it is configured with a value, then it will print that value. That means this is basically configuring everything into its understandable format. Its understandable format and defining that. So we don't need to worry because already this is in JavaScript. Only the point is where you want to show the value, how you want to display the value. That means, so we want to include that and we need to display the value. I don't need any other containers because I am just using document.write here, document.write here. So, and currently username and password and some options I defined, it is unable to print the details. So the reason is actually simple. So it is unable to print the details because the code you have written so doesn't match for printing on the screen because we just used a simple reference. And to print, you can use the element IDs, reference of element IDs, and presenting the reference IDs. That means use a div or a span and call that and display them. So here I will give one small additional option like what is. So just hang up 1 second. Yeah, where is this file? Index.js. 1 second. Some issue is there. I will check. Okay. So here, see, one is the product name, and this product name, whatever you collected, this product name must be passed into this location and defined. That means here what we do, obj dot property, that is product name, is equal to the product name we are defining. So whatever the product name we have entered in that option. Okay. So, but this is accessed through the prompt, Generally, if he is not authorized, or if he is not authorized, then setting this product name into that property will not happen. This is a setter actually. Let's say this is setter. That means this is set value. Setter is configured at the top. So it is configured at the top and it is defined. Now let's compile this. So because the new name need to be defined. And after compiling, so let's run this. So username, so John underscore NIT, and password, some John123. Product name, some Samsung TV. So then it should get that product name and display. So I think refresh, John123 and some Samsung TV. So it is not displaying. Once check in the UI here, the product name we have configured. It is unable to access this. Where we went wrong. The JavaScript file need to be linked. I linked that JavaScript file. Once check that. Right. The linked JavaScript file updated. Okay. John NIT John123. So we are adding that. I will check that. Underscore username. This is our product name variable. Variable is fine, man. There is no problem in that. Right side. It's okay. So just the saving reference is the problem. Let's check that. I will link this file. Script source is it is in src index.js file. So that is index.js file John underscore NIT and John 123, and the product name is some name. It will get it. It's fine. Just the reference JavaScript file is not updated. That's it. Okay. Now, if I entered any wrong authentication, so I entered like username is some John underscore NIT and password is something wrong, and I entered the product name Samsung TV. Okay, then it says you are not authorized to set the product name. That means for one situation it is allowing to set value, and another situation it is not allowing to set value. That's general. So that is what actually the concept of accessors. The accessors can be defined over the properties that makes it more functional. So that means you can change the behavior dynamically. At one situation, it will work as read only. In another situation, it will work as read write. That means if this is matching, then it will set the name. If it is not matching, then it will not set the name. It will just display the message. So we are collecting the name, password, and product name from the prompt. And this setter is nothing but actually it is collecting the name you entered. So this name will be passed as a parameter and it will verify the username password correct or not. If correct, then only it will set that name. Otherwise, it will not allow. That's the basic. So this is what happening here. So I entered the username John NIT and password is John123 and the product name is mobile, and it should get that and display. If anything wrong, then it is unable to handle. That is general accessors. And this is not a new concept. You have these accessors in your JavaScript also. So in the same way we use in JavaScript. What is new about TypeScript class is about the access modifiers. About the access modifiers. So access modifiers, three important access modifiers are there: public, private, and protected. So what is difference between them? Public, private, protected. What are these access specifiers and what is difference? Actually, public allows access from any location, from any location, from any location, from any location, and with any object. Any location and any object you can access it. That is public. Public is the access specifiers, the modifiers. And next, private allows access only, allows access only within the class, and protected allows access within the class, and outside the class, class by using derived class object, only derived class object. By using only derived class object, these are the three access modifiers. Additionally, you will find in TypeScript, so which is not in your JavaScript. JavaScript doesn't support these access modifiers. JavaScript have constructor, JavaScript have property, methods, accessors. So these are same, no change. But access modifiers are the new in TypeScript. You cannot have access modifiers in JavaScript. You can have this. By default, every property and method that you define is public. By default, every property and method that you defined is public, by default public. We can restrict that private protected also. We will see what is the difference actually. So suppose I'm configuring here. So class. So we are defining the class and specifying the class. Better I will, yeah. Now you will be in the correct track. Okay, right. See, now I told you already, if you have any doubt, raise your hand. Okay, so that I can talk to you. Then I will be more clear about your level of understanding and I can explain what problem it is. Okay, right. If you have any doubt, raise your hand. That's it. Fine. Now let's see what is this. What are these three access modifiers? So I am creating a class that is a base class. In this we have like public. So I defined name, public name, and it is a string type. So another private price. So that is a number type. Okay. And the protected. So stock, that is some Boolean type. So Boolean type. So we have these three members, the public, private, and protected. And these three members are accessible. So, and they have some access restriction. And what is the access restriction and how we can manage that? What are those? Public, private, protected. These are accessible within the class. So within the class, you know that suppose we have a print method. So public, so print method. And we want to access those. Then we can simply configure by using console.log. I can access by using this keyword. So by using this, I can access this dot name. It is accessible. And in the next line, so this dot price, it is also accessible. And in the next line, so this dot stock, all three are accessible. Within the class, all the three are accessible. Now, what is their limitations? What are the restrictions? So we have class derived. So this derived class extends the base class. It extends the base class. So derived class is extending the base class. Now, in the derived class, we created a print method. So we are creating another print method here. Now here, I am creating an object. So let obj is equal to new base. It is an object of base class. It is an object of base class. Now, if it is an object of base class, now generally, tell me, so which member is accessible here? Through obj, what are the members accessible here? Through obj, what are the members accessible here? What are the members accessible here? Through obj, what are the members accessible here? First point, I hope you understood all these three concepts. Public is accessible. Public is accessible within the class and outside the class through any reference. Private is accessible only within the class. Protected is accessible within the class and outside the class only by using derived class object. Outside the class only by using derived class object. Is this object derived class object? Is that object derived class object? Is that object derived class object or base class object? So this object is a base class object. Base class object. Then in that case, through that object, it can access only name. Protected is not accessible. Understood? Protected is accessible outside the class only through derived class object. Outside the class only through derived class object. That means here name is accessible. I will set some name TV. Suppose outside the class, suppose see here, I will create anywhere outside or anywhere. I will create LET. So some sample is equal to new derived. That means it is a derived class object. Sample is in derived class object. Now through sample, I can access the public member and I can access the protected member stock. So protected member is accessible within the class and outside the class only through derived class object. It is protected for derived only. You cannot even access through the base class object. Through derived class object only you can access that. Suppose here I said LET, some D is equal to new derived. It is an object of derived. Through D I can access name. That means here one more point is there. The point is this protected is accessible only outside the derived class, outside the base class, in the derived class with the derived class object. That is more restricted actually. That means protected allows access within the class and outside the class by using a derived class object within the derived class. Derived class only. Within the derived class only. Not outside the derived class. Protected is accessible within the derived class using a derived class reference. It's not accessible outside. So if you want to access anything outside that scope, then you have to define by using public. So that is the restriction actually. So technically the restriction about how we can access public, private and protected. Public, private and protected. That is the accessibility, how you define them. This is new for TypeScript and this is not there in JavaScript. That means you cannot have public, private, protected like access modifiers in JavaScript. That is one option. Another option, JavaScript will not support static keyword. So in TypeScript, it supports static. TypeScript supports static. So that means we have static members and we have non-static members. We have static and non-static members. Actually, in general, JavaScript, it will not support this static specifically in a class. In a class, all are by default non-static. Generally in JavaScript, all are by default non-static. Non-static. Built-in objects are static actually. Built-in object means you have learned window, location, navigator, history, like objects you might have learned. This majority of these and string object and all, these are all actually static objects, built-in static. But the objects that but the members that you define in a general JavaScript class, all are non-static. TypeScript supports static and non-static. So it supports static and non-static. So that's the reason. Generally, if you want to use location related any property, then how do you use? Will you create LOC is equal to new location? Will you create like this and use location dot href? Will you do like this? Huh? Will you do like this? So no, we don't do like this. Directly we can access that location dot href. Am I right? Right. Now the point is, so what are static and non-static members? That means what is static and non-static? Let's see. What is difference between static and non-static? Generally, as per your existing knowledge, so static, non-static, how you will define static means? What do you say? How you will say static? Static means? Static means, what is your definition of static? Static means good. Okay, 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 fine. Okay. Yeah, but good. So many answers from your side. Very good. Right. Good. Static means, but do you know all these answers that you have given are good, very good, but not satisfied. That means a programming expert will not be satisfied with your answers, whatever you given. I appreciate your answers. So good response you have given, but at expert level, we will not be satisfied with your answers about static. Why? I will tell you. I will tell you. Because I haven't seen any one of you has given the exact terminology for static and non-static. You tried to explain whatever you have learned, but that doesn't makes you as an experienced developer talking about static, non-static. It makes like a learner, so talking about static and non-static. I will tell you. I will tell you. Actually, so good. I will tell you now. Right. I will tell you. I will tell you so that you can understand. Your answers are good, but not great. So why? Because that doesn't satisfy that you are experienced in programming. This all tells that you are just learners of programming. Because if anybody says I am faking my experience, I want to show this much, that much experience. Some people even say I am working from several years and still they have the same definitions, then not satisfied. So Let's be more clear to understand about what is the points. Actually, first thing you should know that, do you know static and non-static are the terms, are the terms, are the terms related, related to memory? First point. Do you know that static and non-static are the terms related to memory? Right? Good. So good. Yes. So the terms static and non-static are related to memory. I will tell you what is the behavior. I will show you practically also. Suppose we have the main memory. We have the main memory. Now, in this main memory, so we have the memory classification. Okay. Suppose we created a component. We created a component, not only in Java here, so anywhere in the technology, across in the technology, computing technology, the word meaning of static and non-static is same. I will explain that, you will see. Okay, right. Now observe here, for this component, the memory is allocated. For this component, the memory is allocated. The main memory is allocated for this component. For the component, memory is allocated. In this component, one static member is there. Static, yes, is 0. And non-static is also 0. That means we have two members in this component. So S and N. S is a static member and N is a non-static member. Actually, the main memory is now categorized into, classified into two parts. So a static and a non-static memory. Non-static, or you say dynamic. Dynamic, static or non-static or dynamic. Actually, the static members are configured inside this static memory. Non-static members are configured inside this non-static memory. Non-static memory. After that, so here they have some operation, S equal to S plus 1, N is equal to N plus 1. That means increment operations are there. That means static S is equal to S plus 1. And here also same, N is equal to N plus 1. Incrementing by 1. Now first step is I am creating an object, first object. I am creating an object for this particular component. Now this object will start using the memory. Now what it will do is, it will go into the memory and it will set S equal to 0 plus 1. After that, that means S equal to 1. It sets the S value to 1. After setting the S value, the static memory, it's modified. That means you have modified that. Modified by object 1. After modified by object 1, this memory will continue. This memory will continue. Modified memory will continue. Modified memory will continue. So technically, this memory will continue for the next object also. That means I have obj2, second object. I created second object for same component. Then it will go to the memory and it will see that already that static memory is modified and it is S value is 1. Now it will continue from that memory. That means Now for S, it will be 1 plus 1. That means now for second object, S will be 2. That means the memory allocated for first object, the memory modified by the first object, the same memory, the memory will continue for the rest of objects. The memory continues for rest of objects. That means static means in professional terminology, static uses continuous memory. Continuous memory. Static uses continuous memory. I will show you practically. We will see that. Static uses continuous memory. Continuous memory means memory modified by first object will continue for next object, and the same will repeat. If third object comes, it will continue the second object. That means the memory continues. So this is continuous memory. So professionally, if anybody asks what is static, you explain so many ways, but experts are not satisfied with your answer until or unless you use the word continuous memory. So continuous memory, that means the memory continues. I will show you practically, we will see that. I will show you just in a while, we will see that. So it is continuous memory. Non-static is actually discrete memory. Discrete memory. That means not continuous memory, disconnected memory or discrete memory. Disconnected or discrete memory, not continuous. That means what happens now? The same obj1 will go to non-static memory. In that, it will set n is equal to 0 plus 1 and n equal to 1. After it finished using, technically after it finished using, so what it will do is it will reset the memory. After it finished using, it will reset the memory. After finished using, it will reset the memory. That means when object 2 goes to use this non-static memory, when object 2 goes, then for that object, n is again 0 plus 1. That means n is 1. N is 1. That means the memory is disconnected memory. It is called a discrete memory. So that means the point here is, so static is continuous memory, non-static is discrete memory. I will show you that practically here. Let's create a class demo. In this demo class, we have static S0. We have n, so 0. That is non-static. Now, generally, so we have a constructor. In this constructor, so S is static members. Static members are accessed within the class or outside the class by using the class name. That means demo.s is equal to, so demo.s plus 1. Now, by seeing this, many people will give you this as a definition. That's like silly thing. What you are talking about? Do you know many people give an answer like, sir, static means static, they are accessible by using class name, and non-static means they are accessible by using object name. What you are talking about? I never asked how they are accessed. So that is not the point about static and non-static, but this becomes a point for static and non-static for learners in OOP concepts. Learning of OOP people, so will generally will put a simple point like, sir, static members means accessible by class name. That's not the point actually. So how they are accessed is not what they are, right? That is the difference you need to know first. So, okay, static members are accessed by class name within the class or outside the class. That's fine. So non-static members are accessible by using this within the class. Outside the class by using object. N is equal to this dot n plus 1. Both are incremented by 1. And we have a print method. This print method is printing. So console.log, it is printing. It is printing. So yes is equal to the value of s. That means demo.s. And n is equal to the value of n. So that is this dot n. We are printing those values. And see now what I am doing is I am creating let obj1 object1 for demo class. And through that object1 obj1 I am printing. Okay, that means first object is printing s value, n value. So observe carefully now. So let's open this and define in the terminal, or I will open in Explorer so that you can clearly see that command. Okay, tsc demo, this is index.ts. Okay, now I write here node index.js and it is printing s and n value as 1. That's okay. Let's go to this and create another object now. That means I am creating another object for the same class. Let obj2 is equal to new demo. So through obj2 I am printing let obj3, so new demo, and obj3, so dot print, we are printing. Now 3 objects are using static and non-static members. Now observe carefully here. I am compiling this and running this again. And you can see that S value is 1, 2, 3, but N value is 1. 3 different objects, but the memory continues. The first memory continues to second, second continues to third. So static means continuous memory. Static means continuous memory. So non-static means discrete memory, disconnected memory. So that's the reason for non-static, every time, remember, both are present in same class. Both are present in the same class, right? So memory will be newly allocated every time for the object, because the memory allocated for first object will not continue. It will destroy when it is non-static. Actually, I will tell you here the point. I will tell you. So if anybody asks, like, as a developer, tell me when I should use a static or non-static so concept in my programming, then see one small example I will give you. That means as a developer, when you will decide to use static or non-static. For example, see, that means which member should be static, which member should be non-static, how you will decide that. Suppose we have database and we have an application. So we have an application. So we have database and we have an application. Now in this application, some objects are there. We have insert object, we have update object, and we have delete object. Insert object inserts a record into database. Update object updates the object. Delete object deletes the object. Deletes the record from the database. These 3 objects have to perform operations on the database. But before doing that, before inserting, updating, deleting, they have to connect. They have to first connect with the database. Now this connection I given as static connection. The connection I given as a static connection. If I given that connection as static, then what will happen is when I select insert, first insert, it will connect. After connecting, it inserts. After inserting is finished, will the connection still in the memory? Will the connection still in the memory? The connection is still in the memory. So second object, no need to create a connection again. It can use the existing connection. Am I right? Am I right? Now? That means the second object is using this connection. Third object is using the same connection and performing the operations. So we have both good and bad about static. What is good about static is we don't need to configure connection every time. Understood? We don't need to configure connection every time. But what is bad is after inserting, if I am not doing update, delete and all, then what is happening? If I don't update and delete after inserting, then what will happen? The connection will be still in the memory. Am I right? The connection will be still in the memory. Am I right? If the connection is still in the memory, then it occupies more memory. You might have learned that static occupies more memory. Huh? You have learned that static occupies more memory in your OOP concepts anywhere. Huh? So, yeah, that means the point is here. Not only that, it is not secured also. Why? Because if it is still in the memory, memory leaks may happen. Anyone can hack your connection. So many technical issues also will come. If I give this, if I give this connection, if I give this connection as dynamic or non-static, now what will happen? Dynamic or non-static, then what will happen? So generally, after inserting, it will connect and insert. After inserting, it will disconnect. After inserting, it will disconnect. Then what update have to do is, whenever it has to update, it have to create this connection again. It have to create that connection again. So it have to create that connection again. It have to create that connection again. Update, delete. For every time you need to connect and update and connect and delete. This is more secured, but it will take more time. Am I right? What do you say? It is more secured, but it will take more time. You need both situations. For example, suppose you have Gmail. In Gmail, what happened is you logged in into your Gmail account and you haven't signed out, and you simply closed the browser. But your Gmail is still connected. You open the browser again and open Gmail, it will directly open your account. What do you say? Huh? So that means once it is connected, it is continuing the connection. That is not secured. So for example, you are using a bank application that is good for Gmail. So if I want continuously, suppose you used a bank application, you selected transfer amount, immediately it will ask you to log in again or provide authentication again. Am I right? That means every time you are doing some transactions, for every new transaction, it will check again, are you the same person or not? Right? Every time when you are doing that, it will check again and again. So that means it does it done your work, after doing it, it will disconnect. So because it is not safer, it is not safer. So now developer will decide when to use a static member or a non-static member, for which situation static member, which situation not static member. That means if you want the continuous, then he will go with so static. If not continuous, discrete, then we go with non-static. So at the programming technologies, anywhere in the world, any technology in the world, static means continuous memory, non-static means discrete memory. This is the universal part. I hope everyone understood that. That is the answer we expect from an expert in programming about static and non-static means discrete and continuous. I hope everyone is clear with this, right? So discrete static is, that means don't say that static is accessible by class name, non-static is accessible by object. Those are all not the point that tells what is static. They are all the behaviors of static. Whatever answers I have read from your side when I asked that question, all those answers that you given about, all those answers that given about is behavior of static and dynamic. You haven't mentioned the definition of static and dynamic. You given good behavior. That means all your answers are correct, but they are not the definition of static and dynamic. They are the behaviors that you have mentioned. So you mentioned the behaviors. So behaviors, right? So that means I already proved you with a program, right? You have seen a program, right? So I already proved that with the program. We have seen that. Because many times you might have also learned that a single object is created and the same object will be used for others. Here in this context, is it one object? Is it one object or one memory? We are not talking about object. We are talking about the memory. Is it one object or one memory? So it is not about one object or two objects or three objects. It is about memory. So only one static memory will be there. So only one dynamic. Static can continue for different objects. Remember, these three are different objects. Have you seen? These three are different objects of that component. I created separately three objects. I created three objects separately. Have you observed that? So I created three objects separately, right? So that means three objects separately allocated with the memory. Separately allocated with the memory. But first object, second object is continuing the memory of previous object. So even I created new memory for this second object, new memory for this second object, it is continuing its previous object memory. That means the memory allocated for the first object will continue for others. Another general example actually, so technically, so defining is for example, when you are dealing with the memory operations and you need, suppose I show here, suppose you have some Facebook. So in Facebook or YouTube, Facebook or YouTube, so YouTube, suppose you uploaded so one video, you uploaded a video, and that just now you uploaded a video, then you will see there will be an option, be first to like. Am I right? Be first to like. That means you will be the first person to like that video. That means nobody have seen or nobody have liked it, and you click on like. You are the first person. You logged in into your account. From your account you clicked like. Your account you clicked like. Will this like continue for another person, another login. What do you say? It is continuing now. You see Facebook and YouTube likes how they work, right? That means this is your account. Somebody has some other account, That means for him, memory is separately allocated. Memory is separately allocated, but the likes is continued. Am I right? Likes is continued from the previous. We don't know who is that previous until or unless we see that. That means technically, so that is using a static memory. That is using a static memory. That's how generally you configure and define the concept of static, configuring and working with the static. Right? So in JavaScript, you don't have this static. You don't have this static and access modifiers. So here you additionally have them. So that is the reason I need to give a glance of that. I'm not teaching you class, extending classes, inheriting classes and all these, because they are same JavaScript OOP like only. What is new here, that is the part I am giving an overview to understand that generally how it works and what are the new options. So access modifiers are new, and the static non-static configuration is new here, and all other rules and other options are same, no change. That means it will support inheritance in the same way. It supports inheritance in the same way. It supports technically dynamic polymorphism. I will show you how the dynamic polymorphism works. So, and we will see some more options like enum, what is, and generics. These two things, and modules. These three things we need to discuss. That we will see in our next session. Okay. With these three topics, we can conclude our TypeScript. Then we will go into Angular now. We will start learning and working with Angular. Okay. These three topics we will discuss, right? So enum, generics, and modules. Then we can go into the concept of working with Angular now. Okay. So in the next session. So Monday we will continue with that. Okay. All these notes I will upload into the classroom. I hope you all people are in the classroom. You have this link, right? Yeah. And in the notes, detailedly everything is configured. You can get it. Okay. Right. Okay. Then let's continue on Monday. Right.